Welcome to AS London Wellness Academy. This video lecture is on the reproductive system. Unlike many other systems in the body, the organs of this system will differ completely from men to women. So let's look at what is included in the male reproductive system. So it includes the prostate gland, the testes, the testicular vessels, the penis, the scrotum, and in women it consists of the ovaries, the fallopian tubes, the uterus, the cervix, the vagina and the labia. In both sexes, the pelvic girdle is a bony cavity and its function is to protect the organs. So let's start with the male reproductive system. So first of all, we're going to be looking at the pelvic girdle. Now it's a bony cavity which forms a protective basin for the reproductive organs. Both men and women have this, although it is wider in women because it will allow the passage of a baby in childbirth. So let's have a look at the function then. It protects the internal organs of the reproductive system as well as the bladder and the rectum. It supports the spine and it provides attachments for the muscles of the lower back, the abdomen and the thighs. So we're going to start off looking at the male reproductive system by looking at the prostate gland. Now it's a small gland situated between the bladder and the rectum. It surrounds the beginning of the urethra. The function of the prostate is because of the prostate's position at the start of the urethra, it's important because it produces two secretions carried in semen. One secretion helps keep the lining of the urethra moist and the other is part of the seminal fluids. This helps semen to travel along the urethra and into the female. The next part of the reproductive system we're looking at is the testes. These are the male gonads or glands in the endocrine system. The testes are two glands controlled within a sac of skin and muscle called the scrotum. They develop in the abdomen before descending into the scrotum just before birth. The function of the testes is to produce spermatozoa, as also known as sperm, and the male sex hormone testosterone. This is responsible for your male sexual characteristics. Now spermatozoa develops in the testes and they're also stored because they must be kept at a slightly low temperature than the average body temperature, which is around about 35 degrees. So let's look at the testicular vessels then. The testicular vessels are the epididymis and the vas deferens. Now two tubes which form the passageway from the testes to the urethra. We're going to look at the epididymis first of all. Now the epididymis is a tightly coiled tube. It opens from the top of each testes and it continues down alongside of the gland and straightens out into the vas deferens. The function of the epididymis is to store and transport sperm as well as acting as a site where immature sperm can develop. Now we're going to look at the vas deferens. It's a duct with a muscular wall leading from the epididymis to the urethra. The function of the vas deferens acts as a passageway for the transfer of sperm from the storage site of the epididymis to the prostatic urethra and eventually to the penis. This occurs during sexual activity and by contracting its muscular walls, the vas deferens pushes the sperm forward. Let's move on to the scrotum then. It's one of two external sex organs in the male. The scrotum is a sac which contains the testes, the epididymis and the vas deferens. It hangs between the penis, right behind it. So the structure is that it's a sac made of an outer layer of skin and an inner layer of muscle. Its membrane divides into two halves, one for each testes. The function of the scrotum is to support and protect the testes as well as maintain the correct body temperature. The testes are kept outside the body in order to keep them at a slightly lower temperature than the body. However, if the temperature of the scrotum drops, it reacts by contracting its muscular walls. This moves itself and the testes closer to the body and it will raise the temperature of the glands. If the temperature is too high though, the muscles will relax, moving the scrotum and testes away from the body and this will lower the temperature. So moving on to the penis, it's the main external sex organ of the male and it has three important parts. It's a erectile tissue, the foreskin and the urethra. Now the penis consists of three bodies of spongy erectile tissue all running lengthways. Two of these run side by side above the urethra, a tube that runs through the centre of the penis and acts as a duct for urine and semen. The third lies underneath them, forming a tube containing the urethra which becomes the tip of the penis. This is known as the glans. Now this tissue is full of blood vessels. Surrounding the glands is the foreskin. So it's a loose double fold of skin which protects the glands. The foreskin is sometimes removed either due to religious reasons or to prevent any infection. The The function of the penis has two roles. It's the organ of excretion, so it carries urine from the bladder, and it's the organ of reproduction. So during sexual activity, the penis becomes erect. Now this erection is caused by an increase of the amount of blood circulating in the vessels of the spongy tissues. These tissues will then swell, causing the penis to enlarge. Eventually the tissues become rigid, which allows penetration into the vagina of the female and safe delivery of the semen during intercourse. So let's have a look at sperm now. So the structure, sperm looks like a microscopic tadpole. Each one consists of a head, a middle section and a tail. And this tail will help the sperm along the vagina and into the uterus. The head is a nucleus which contains 23 chromosomes, where the tail is just a projection resembling a thread. This moves backwards and forwards, enabling the sperm to swim to its destination. The function of the sperm is to fertilise the ova, which is known as the eggs, and these are the female sex cells. The head of the sperm, carrying the important genetic information in the form of chromosomes, inserts itself into the ovum, and the tail, which is no longer needed, will break down. Although semen contains millions of sperm, you actually only need one to fertilise the egg. Once fertilised, the ovum will usually grow and develop into a baby. So let's look at what semen actually is. It's a fluid discharged from the penis during sexual intercourse. It contains sperm and secretions from the prostate gland and seminal vesicle, which is a small structure behind the bladder. We are now going to be moving on to the female reproductive system. So this system is hidden inside the body, apart from the entrance of the vagina and the vulva. Just like the male system, the organs within the body are contained and protected by the pelvic girdle. So let's look at the uterus first of all. It's the centre of the female reproductive system, and it's known as the womb. It's here that a fertilised ovum grows into a baby. The top end opens out to the fallopian tubes, and the bottom end, or cervix, opens into the vagina and forms the birth canal. The structure of the uterus is that it's a muscular hollow organ, and it sits at right angle into the vagina and connects with the fallopian tubes. It's the size and shape of an upside down pear and around about 7.5 centimetres long and 5 centimetres wide. This will also expand during pregnancy to accommodate the fetus. Now the lining of the uterus consists of layers of tissue which respond to hormonal secretions. These layers thicken every month, ready to act as a nourishing bed for the fertilised ovum. So the function of the uterus, it's the place where the fetus grows and develops. So every month it prepares itself for a possible pregnancy, and if there's no fertilised ovum, then menstruation will occur. And you'll have this in more detail with your endocrine system. We're moving on to the cervix now. So the cervix is a narrow neck of the uterus, which opens up into the vagina. Usually it's the width of a pencil lead, but during childbirth it dilates to allow the passage of the baby. So the cervix actually forms the first part of the birth canal, and the dilation of the cervix is a measurement used to determine how soon childbirth will begin. So looking at the ovaries now, these are your female gonads or glands, so that connects to your endocrine system. The structure is that they are approximately the size and shape of an almond, and they are positioned either side of the uterus, just below the fallopian tubes. The function of the ovaries is to secrete the hormones responsible for female sexual characteristics. Unlike sperm, ova exists at the body in birth, but an immature and undeveloped form in follicles. After puberty, one of these follicles will develop and rupture, releasing an ovum every month, and this is known as your ovulation. So let's look at what a follicle actually is. These are small structures on the surface of the ovary, which are known as your Graafian follicles when they mature. They contain fluid and an egg or ovum. As soon as an ovum is mature and ready to be fertilised, the follicle will split, releasing the ovum, which will then travel along the fallopian tubes to the uterus. So looking at the fallopian tubes then, they're a funnel-shaped tube which start at the top of the uterus and continue along to the ovaries. They're named after the Italian anatomist who discovered them. So the function of the fallopian tubes is that they are a passageway from the ovaries to the uterus for the ovum, as well as at the site for fertilisation. So sperm swim up these tubes to reach the ovum. So let's look at the vagina then. The structure is a muscular passage leading from the cervix to the vulva. It connects the internal sex organs, and these will swell as the vaginal walls fill with blood. You will now tune to the next video cast to look at this in more detail.